Hi, and welcome to Complete Cast, the official podcast for Complete Unbox video games. And today, in episode 56, we're going to swerve a little bit from a lot of the reviews and stuff we're doing. Also, we are joined again by Parker!
Hey!
Yeah, I know that was a big surprise for you guys, so keep your hats on. You know, we got a good episode for you. So today, we are going to create your own perfect game. You know how at Sheets you can create your own perfect meal because Sheets is better than Wawa? Well, that's the same way. I didn't get anything from you on that one? Dang. I was hoping I would get something from you there. Okay. So yeah, just like in a lot of these places you can create your own perfect meal, we're going to create our own video game. There's really no rules when it comes to this. It can be any sort of genre. It can have anything you want with it. We're going to assume that budget is unlimited and that if it has been done in a game before, that we can do it. So, You know, if your idea is something that's like procedurally generated world that's as big as GTA 5 and constantly has people doing different stuff on a daily commute, like real life, that's not, you know, you can say it's a big world like GTA 5, that's great, or you can say it's procedurally generated and kind of boring. That's great, but we're going to try to keep this in the realm of reality of stuff that has already been made. So essentially, we're picking and choosing our favorite ideas from games and putting them together to make the perfect game. And you can even come up with your own idea as long as it's within the realm of possibility with, you know, what we're dealing with right now. So
so mine is a game where you just get money for playing it.
Oh my god, yes. I love it. Actually, mine's Minecraft, so are we good? All right, see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.
I am no longer 6 years old, so mine is not Minecraft. Although my 6-year-old would say it's Minecraft, so we'll see. Minecraft, Hello Neighbor, Roblox, all in one. Bendy and the Ink Machine, all of it. Bendy, Neighbor, Roblox, Craft. There we go. It's all good to go. So, like I said, if you have, before we even start on this, if you guys have any ideas that you have out there in YouTube land, just even like a general idea, like, even if you are like, I think that X game is perfect except for this, and I would change this. Great, let us know below. I'm going to take mine where I start from the very beginning and kind of just craft a game, because otherwise it would be, I mean, pretty boring. I could be like, perfect game, okay, Mario RPG, but it's longer.
But it's longer and it has more songs that are all exactly the same level of quality.
There we go. You know,
perfect.
Final Fantasy VII, but Aeris doesn't die. Ugh. Actually, there was this really unique April Fool's joke that they just pulled showing that you can get Aeris back, but like you don't realize that it's an April Fool's until the very last second, and you're like, I hate you. It was like anyway. So that's my nerdnum there for Final Fantasy VII. So I'm gonna start out here. My favorite genre of games is survival horror, and it is probably the genre. And correct me if I'm wrong, Parker. Probably the genre that has the highest highs and the lowest lows.
In terms of like quality.
In terms of quality, yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
I consider a lot of the classic survival horror games, like your Silent Hills or your Resident Evil 1s, to be, all things considered, about as perfect as you can get. But there are so many very, 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 very bad ones. We played one on Let's Plays on this channel called Night Cry, which is made pretty much in the realm of Clock Tower, which I love, and it is so bad. In fact, there are 4 Clock Tower games. One is Excellence Incarnated. One is that's the PS1 one. One is very good. That's the SNES one. Michael Kenny, BTFO. One is Simply Okay, that's Clock Tower 3, and one is one of the worst games of all time, and that is Clock Tower 2, The Struggle Within. That is within only like maybe 5 years of each other, and it is the same genre showing this amount of ridiculousness. It might be a little bit more close to Clock Tower 3, but let's even say 10 years.
That's still crazy.
You know, even look at, you know, Silent Hills. The highs are the highs, and the lows are the lows. So, there are a lot of survival horror games, I feel, more than any other genre, that have some very good ideas entrenched in a game that physically doesn't work. even Nightcry has some ideas where I'm like, that's cool. I wish this game wasn't so bad. And I feel like I've said that quite a bit for playing survival horror games. And I don't want to be one of those persons that's always like apologizing for this stuff. Like Clock Tower 1 for PS1 has like a lot of things that's fundamentally like wrong with it, and yet it's still so great. And you can look at that a lot of like the original Star Wars movie is like not the like craziest thing out there in terms of like, you know,
effects.
Like what's that?
Like effects.
I mean, at
the time they looked good. And
the story is a little bit silly and all that, but it's still great. And there's a lot of stuff out there like that. You can name a lot of movies, you know, that are like that. So, you know, you have Haunting Ground for the PS2. It has some good ideas like Your Helping Dog and, you know, that general Clock Tower feel, but it's terrible. It's just god-awful, and it just is what it is. So, we're going to start out with mine with all those things considered. So, like I said, it is a survival horror game. As will come to no surprise, it is a Clock Tower-esque game. By that, I mean you essentially have very little powers or abilities to fight back, and you are essentially, quote-unquote, running from enemies. Okay. Whereas a game like Resident Evil or Silent Hill,
right.
You get stuff. You get stuff. You could even look at it almost like an Outlast, but with like a few more abilities to like fight back. Because I don't think in Outlast you can like do anything. It's just hiding.
Yep.
This one's a little more like you can find an item and use it. Like you could find like
Clock Tower, where
like
you can do something.
You
with
walk
the
past
background.
a tea kettle and it's hot, and you can throw it at them, right? And then you run away. But the enemies will always come back and find you until you finish this. So just like one of the things I love about Clock Tower and Resident Evil 3, it has lots of RNG. By RNG, I mean random times that the enemy can appear, like Nemesis or Scissorman. I do want it to still have some set moments that they appear, like when you do certain things. But I really like the idea of, again, like a Clock Tower, where if you spend too much time dilly-dallying in one place, or if you go to an item, this happens a lot in Clock Tower 1, so if you go to like a boombox and you decide to turn it on because you're an idiot, it'll start playing music, and now there's a much higher chance that he shows up soon with that. One of the things that I do not want it to have at all, under any circumstances, is crafting. I want no crafting. I want no finding items to make other items. There can be plenty of items.
I mean, has there been a horror game that has had crafting? Is it just
Last of Us?
Is it just Last of Us?
I mean, there's probably other.
It's just fun. Like, it's clear that you don't like crafting, but you're like, I want to make sure it doesn't have crafting. It's like, it probably won't. I just want to make sure it doesn't.
I mean, that would ruin it for me. Like, Last of Us, I love the story and stuff so much that I deal with it, but the gameplay is, like, not the reason. Anyway, doesn't Outlast have some sort of crafting in, like, the healing items? Maybe I'm thinking, like, incorrectly. Maybe, I feel like I played a horror game recently that, like, had a little bit of that kind of stuff in it. But, anyway, I don't want to take... I
mean, RE does.
RE3 even does, just with the gunpowder.
Yeah.
But
no, but I'm saying, like, RE7... Or Biohazard
Biohazard
has a bunch of that stuff.
Not a big fan. I mean, it just is what it is. And especially with a Clock Tower type game, you really have to have very little ability to fight back, and crafting, I feel, takes a lot of that away there. You can have items for healing, you can have items for fighting, but no crafting, please.
I mean, like it can have RE4 level crafting, or like Resident Evil level crafting, where you're putting together some
fine.
like herbs or whatever.
Yeah, or like 2 key items to make another item is fine with me. Like that's acceptable. Right. That's been around since the dawn of time. But finding a shiv and you find 100 shivs out there, and then finding a bandage to make it a knife. No big fan on that.
Punching trees.
I don't want it to be open world, but I would like some backtracking in certain levels. I was thinking about if I wanted to have it to be more like a Clock Tower 1, where it's like there's 3 unique separate levels, or if I wanted to be more like you just kind of explore. And I think I'd like it to be 2 unique levels, but they're both like rather big. And like I said, I really like the idea of like a Resident Evil 1 mansion, which is just perfection. Like of some backtracking that's going there, and some finding items and all that. And I feel like a Resident Evil 1 type beautifully made mansion with all the puzzles with an enemy that is constantly following you would be like ridiculous. Like just ridiculously difficult. And that's what you're looking for in a game like this. So I have written down that items will be very important, obviously. An example I give is that something you pick up very early could become very important later. So you really want to explore around and find your stuff. Again, this is a lot of these ideas are like legitimately like good things that Clock Tower 1 did. It just all boiled up into one. There's a flashlight you find in part 1 that you absolutely need in part 3 to get the best ending. So I really like that idea that you can do that. I also have that unlimited inventory space within reason. You know, you're not going to be fine. There's not going to be 1,000 items in the game,
right.
but
you're also not getting weapons. So like having unlimited inventory is kind of like
like so if you find a red ball, you better hold on to that ball just in case. And then later on, you know, just I don't know, as an example, there's a cutscene and the enemy's coming after you, and they go to, you know, jump on you, and they're like, say they're just a crazy enemy that has like its mouth is open, it's like and then you can choose items, and you choose the ball, you put it in its mouth, it starts choking, you can run away, or else you get ending C. You know, that kind of general thing where you're like really trial and error, and you can try another item, like say even an item prompt appears during it, it's like use an item, and you're like, oh, okay, and you get it, you get item C, dang, restart, you know, do I have the item, what can I do? I really like that idea, and I do find that if that happens, especially with certain RNG, it's something you can play more than once and take a lot more different paths through it. So I also want the enemies to learn from you. In that, I mean, if you use a certain hiding space to get away from an enemy and you try to go back to it again, it will, like, more often than not, look in there after you. Or even you could use that to your advantage. So say in a room, you hide under the bed, right, the first time, and then you run back in the second time and you hide, you know, somewhere else in the room. Then the enemy will look under the bed, which allows you to run out or kick him or whatever that to get away from it. I think that would be pretty cool, and also not like unfathomable with how games are made nowadays. I would like 5 to 10 different endings. I feel I have had games where there's more, and that's a little ridiculous. And I feel like less would make it tough with generally what I'm going here. Right. I would like it that at least one of the endings can be accessed very early. Like I'm talking like 20, 30 minutes, an hour into the game where you do something so incomprehensibly stupid that, like, that's just an ending. Like, just something real dumb that, for instance, you're in a house and you have to find... Clock Tower, again, does this as well. You have to find something, and, like, your character's like, I have to find the valve, and you just leave. And then you're like, great, I win. But then it's like, well, the world exploded. Thanks. You know, you didn't do what you needed to do. 2 characters or 2+ characters to play would be great, especially if the characters had separate stories. I know I'm asking for a lot at this point. Resident Evil 2 Remake for the PS4 certainly didn't have a lot of differences between the 2 characters. If you're going to do the 2 characters, I want to be like a different kind of thing. Almost like they did in Resident Evil 2, the first one, where... they interact at certain points would be really cool, although coming in from different directions, or even honestly being in different areas would be very neat. Meeting up near the end and just being like, "Who are you?" You know, run! Right. You know, that kind of thing. Movies do it all the time, and I think that's a pretty cool part that I like movies like that. Definitely a lot of memos. I think Resident Evil, the first couple games, kills it with all the different cool memos you find. I feel like the memos shouldn't tell the story. I feel like you should be able to find the story through the cutscenes and the things you do, but the memos to explain some backstory and what the characters did during these situations is definitely the way to go. I don't like it, and we've seen a lot of games that do this, where like Doom 2016 is a great example. Yes. Where like I missed a lot of the memos, and I had no idea what the story was. Right. Now, granted, Doom is Doom, and you play it not for the story. Yeah, exactly. So this one, I would want it more to be like Survival's Journal, blah, 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 itchy, tasty, whatever. That would be definitely key for me. But like to be like, the main thing of the story isn't a memo. It's no thank you. That's a bit much for me. I also want the company that makes it, which I didn't have a specific company in mind for this. Because all of them nowadays are so high and low. I would think Capcom because of what they've been doing recently. But I would also go towards a indie company. I would even go as far to say that with help, the person or people that made Remothered for the PC, because that game is actually pretty decent. And it was done with very limited people on a very limited budget. I feel if you brought in, like, and I'm sorry I don't know the names for these people, the original creator of Resident Evil, because he's not that old, and you get them in together working on something like that. Like, you have the guys who made Remothered, who clearly are very capable at what they're doing, but get a couple more voices in there just to be like, oh, I have experience on this, you know, I'm this guy kind of thing. I think that would be great. I want that company to specifically hire people who never did voice work before. I don't care who they are or what they did, but the part of the selection process will be they never did voice work before. I'm not going for House of the Dead 2 style bad, but something like, there's something about games like this where someone is like unrehearsed,
right?
Or like there's a little bit of an edge on the fact that this person hasn't had formal training on this. That I think that would be really cool and kind of hit. I'm not really going for a B movie kind of thing, but I feel like having someone who isn't the worst. It's like the best person you can find out of someone who has never done voice work and has never had experience in his life. I feel like that would be a really nice kind of like middle ground, because you can find and hire the best voice actors, but I feel like in a game like this, it just wouldn't quite fit there.
Yeah.
Story, I would want to be very over the top. Demonic possessions, ghosts, the occult. I love stuff like that. You could even make it, like I said, with the occult.
Lovecraft in there.
What's that?
Throw some Lovecraft.
Lovecraft kind of stuff. You could, you could have that, like the you bringing that. I didn't even think of this before, but you bring that up, like the guy or guys that is following you throughout the game. Like, you find out halfway through are like just a small P in it, you know, and you're just like, oh crap, because like Scissorman is Scissorman, right? He's just it. But like, if like Scissorman, all of a sudden you come upon him and he's like worshiping like this thing, you'd be like, oh no. My god, like, right, like, so that kind of thing would actually be extremely cool. Even just the general idea. We just got done talking about Darksiders 3, which is a horror game in its own right. Am I right? Because it's bad.
Because it's horrible.
Because it's horrible. Having something where, like, with the occult, with like even like a 7 Deadly Sins, or like you know, resurrecting something. Like, it's very horror, and everything's been done and done and done. It just has movies and games and whatever. But if you put
you're not interested in like zombie stuff and like the stuff you've seen from RE or whatever. You want more like possession, demonic side.
And we'll get to the exact reason for that in a second. But yeah, just that general feel. Again, everything has been, for the most part in horror, kind of done before. But if you take and sprinkle in the right ingredients, you can make a good chicken casserole out of it. You know, yeah, people have made it before, but you can make it the best that it's ever been. I'm actually going to skip to... Yeah, so the reason that I want that kind of general feel with, like, the demonic stuff, the possessions, the Lovecraftian, is I want it to be a little tiny bit on the jump scares, but much more of a psychological kind of thing. Jump scares are fine, but many, too many horror games nowadays just rely just on jump scares. And, you know, after the initial... There's a reason Silent Hill 1 is still so scary now, because it's all just so psychological. There are a few jump scares, but just the idea of like running down the street and having everything turn to ash under your feet is much scarier than have someone peek out, boo, you know, kind of thing. Once you know that boo's coming, even in a Resident Evil game, it's not a boo anymore. It doesn't matter. So I really want that kind of psychological thing. I really love the idea of the sanity meter from Eternal Darkness. And that would go along with this general psychological thing. If you guys don't know, in Eternal Darkness, as you see enemies, unless you start to refill your sanity meter, you start to like kind of hallucinate different things happening.
Or like Amnesia has that too.
Yeah.
You start seeing bugs in the walls and stuff.
Some are humorous in that, like, you'll enter like a room and they'll be like, your head will just fall off and you're like, what? And then after the end of all this, it'll always like go to a white screen, and then you'll be back in the room. You'll be like, what's happening?
Right.
You know, some are like, you know, there's a ton of enemies in the room, but just that general, like, as you see these enemies, unless you can get away from them and significantly heal yourself, your sanity will go down. As your sanity meter goes down, if you don't heal or hide, it's going to become increasingly hard to tell what will actually hurt you. So unlike Eternal Darkness, where it's all on like kind of a base scale, where really it's just like cool things you're seeing, this will literally be like you will see the enemy or some enemy there, and they will not be there if your sanity is drained, which will obviously make the game much scarier. You know, if you're just like, you try to run away from this, you go and you hide and you wait for him to cross the corner, and then he disappears. And that makes it seem like even more like, what's going on? Obviously, if you're at full sanity, nothing like that will happen. But as you get down, it gets increasingly worse and worse, to the point where like I wrestled with the idea of if these things can actually hurt you, but I feel if your sanity is completely gone, that they like could eventually start to harm you in that way. You would have somewhat, just like Clock Tower, some weapons, but they would definitely be one use, like a katana you pick up. You could use it one time to get rid of him for a little bit, 5-10 minutes, whatever would work out. But obviously, it doesn't kill any of the enemies. Like I mentioned before, I would like one level much akin to the mansion from Resident Evil 1, where you have just kind of that idea of lots of locked doors, and you kind of have to go and pick around what you're doing, where do you start, kind of thing. And I feel like a game like this would do best in the, I would say 5 to 12 hour mark. I feel like anything longer than that would be a bit tough. You know, horror games aren't meant to be super long, but the way that this is built, especially with the sanity effects and all the different stuff and the different characters and some of the backtracking, would make you want to play it several times again. So, I just explained that game to you as we're sitting here. Do you have any, not that I'm actually making it, but would you have any questions for me as you hear what's going on there? And maybe I can flesh it out, or maybe even be like, oh yeah, I would totally do that kind of thing.
Right. So when you were talking about the multiple characters, do you mean the RE style where you play through the game multiple times as a different character, or do you mean like you get to a part and then it switches to the other viewpoint?
I would like it to be the RE way. Okay. I thought about doing it the other way, but you really have to do that just right to switch between the characters as you go on.
Right.
And I think even if the game was only 2 quote-unquote levels or worlds long, if each of them had different ones, that would really, obviously, extend the length of the game.
Oh, yeah.
The 2 characters thing I wasn't super hardcore on, but I thought that a lot of these horror games do it really well. And especially if you can see the things that character A did as character B, that would be very, very cool. Like, if character B goes in after A, and you see, like, oh, he opened that door, he did that, but at the same time, he broke that because he had to do whatever, would be extremely cool.
Yeah, that does sound cool. So, would it be something where the game is set up where you play through as the one character first, and then you play through as the second character second, always? Or would you want it that you could do it swapped?
If it would be possible, swapped. Yeah, okay. I understand that makes it a lot more difficult to do that. But actually, Resident Evil Code Veronica sets a good precedent for the first one in that, and maybe that's where I even got the idea. You play as Claire at this island thing, and you go through it the whole damn way, and then you go through as Chris, and you notice everything's just like different. Certain areas are not accessible, all that kind of stuff, and I really like that general idea. The only problem with that is you really have to, one of the main problems that people say with Code Veronica is it's like too long and too drawn out, where you'd really have to like have a specific event happen with character A to make it like, whoa, it's so different. Like, even like a Silent Hill, because this is an occult kind of thing, even if it's like character 1 unexpectedly opened the portal to hell, and now this part 2 of character B is like literally hellish, and things are pretty messed up, at that point.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Something else. Would you, like, as far as the items go, like, how would you demarcate the items between, like, an item that you can use just to get rid of the bad guy, one use only, and the item you want to hold on to the end of the game? would you be able to use them interchangeably, like, or would you not want to?
I don't think
punish the player.
Yeah, I think that's too punishing.
Okay.
I mean, the game's punishing enough the way I'm
Right.
coming at. They would have
But there
some
would be some sort of way that you could tell that's like, oh, this is.
I feel like you could pretty easily put like a
combat
like a
item.
plus symbol to make it like
Right.
a combat or something like that.
And then another one would be a quest item, and then you just have it, and you don't know what to do with it until you know what to do with it. Okay.
Yeah, because I thought about that again, but having. I mean, that's really bad to be able to, like even Resident Evil 1 doesn't let you do that. Like, do you want to destroy this item before you're done using it? Like, that's really, like, that's
But it would be interesting if you could use it for a positive effect. You just didn't realize that you could also use it for, like, a good ending or a different ending.
The only reason that would be super tough is then you would get to a lot of areas where, like, I feel it would be a dead end without an ending. Right. You know, like, so if you leave the place without having the key item, that starts an ending. But if you use the ball to gag the guy, but then you realize later on you absolutely have to use the ball to get in a drain pipe, then it's just, you know, it would have to signify, like, well, we as the game figured that you used that, so now you get the setting. That would be very, I mean, would I do it if it was hypothetically possible? Yes.
I mean, I think it probably would be possible.
Do I think it's? I don't know.
I don't think it'd be that impossible.
The choice tree would be like ridiculous at that point.
Yeah, you know? I feel like if you lowered, like, because it doesn't sound like you care about. So I mean, I don't know that you mentioned. If you did, and maybe I missed it, but did you mention really like what look it would go like graphics wise? Because like if you lowered the graphics, you could probably up the like complexity. Did I mean if you were like not caring about it looking like, you know, RE7 or like, you know, RE remake or something?
I think I would like a third person view, almost like a remake, but they could make focus less on the graphics. I don't think a game like this would work really well with like an indie style graphics, and that's just again, this is just me as my quote unquote perfect game. That's not what I like in games like this, but definitely not first person. I just stuff like that is just no fun in first person.
Yeah. So like the but like not clock tower level graphics. Like you want it to look nicer than that.
Yeah, a little bit nice. Yeah, yeah.
But doesn't have to be like amazing, you know. It doesn't have to be like crisp.
Not like Last of Us or anything like that. No,
got it. Okay.
I feel like a standard indie game title would be fine, and people would like. I mean, tons of people played Nightcry and Remothered, and like I said, they're not amazing games by any means, and people don't really care about those graphics and all that. So that would be fine with me.
I think that's it. Yeah, I don't think I had any other questions pop up while we were talking about it.
So yeah, obviously this game clearly takes all the best parts.
Would all the endings be? Would there be only like one good ending? Would there be multiple good endings, or just one good ending and all the others would be like bad?
I think
would all the endings be bad? Like what kind of endings?
Hypothetically, if we did 10, 1 or 2 would be end of the world scenario.
Okay.
Maybe 3 more would be like. It's pretty bad. Like, maybe you die, but, like, it's not necessarily signifying, like, the end of all creation.
Okay.
So that's 5. 1 would be the ultimate, like, if you did everything. Everyone or most everyone survives. And then the rest would be pretty much
in your perfect one, it's like, it's a happily ever after scenario, you think?
I do. Like, I find it... I like having the option of that. When we played Call of Cthulhu for the PS4, the fact that there really was like... And again, it is Lovecraft, so I get it. Like, nothing ever positive happens there.
Right.
But, like, I like the idea of, like, literally just having a game where, like, everything bad in the world happens to you, but then, like, literally you survive and everyone survives, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I think I do like one of the middle ones to be you survive and everyone survives, but pretty clear that you didn't stop the thing. Whatever it is, you didn't stop Cthulhu from coming up, so you're like, it's great, and then let's like,
there's like, it's
so cliche, but the hand comes out of the ground, whatever, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
But that is a good point. I would very, very much like the
ultimate ending is happily ever after.
Hands clean, everything's fine, because that does not happen too often in games like that, and I think it would be interesting for people to like, whoa, and if you do have, because like that's one of the bad things about horror games where like you sometimes do crave that after all this nonsense that happens. It's
so
like,
would
oh,
you
they
almost
died
make
anyway,
it in a way where there's no possibility for a sequel? Like the good ending, you vanquish everything to the point where you're like,
yeah,
this is the world is good.
I wouldn't want this to be a sequel kind of thing. I think a lot of games like this are best just on their own. Yeah. Oh, and another thing that I'm gonna take just straight off Clock Tower is you can save people throughout it. Not a ton, but like you can save like your friends, or you can save character B or whatever. And clearly the best ending, this is just like Clock Tower for PS1, is you save yourself, you save all the people, you stop the things, and everything's good kind of thing. So I think that would be...
What about also then an 80s style look in at everybody's future after, where they like show everybody and then they tell you what happened. Like and then in the good ending you get all good things, and the bad ending you get like bad ones, where it's like went on to like get addicted to gambling and like, wasted her fortune, and then but in the good ending it's like revamped that orphanage and helped all those kids.
I would be fine probably in just like maybe one or two of them.
Right. Just like you're
maybe a third one that's like a joke ending would be kind of cool, but obviously it would be pretty tough. Silent Hill does it, but you have to like do very specific things to get it. So I would be okay with that for sure.
Cool.
So yeah, that's
good.
That's Clock Tower /RE1 / other good stuff of horror games and not the bad parts of it. So that's good. My game. Again, we're going to go into Parker's. Again, just as a reminder, you and YouTube land out there.
Oh, I already said
ideas?
you get money.
Huh?
For playing.
Oh!
It's a slot machine.
Ooh, but you always win?
It's a slot machine, but you can't lose.
Wow.
Okay, so my game would be I don't know if you're familiar with Shadowrun on the SNES.
Not really.
Okay, it's like an action RPG similar to like Secret of Mana, where you like go around and you are fighting, but there's some menu stuff, but like mainly just to like select weapons, and then you actually are the fighting part is like you have to fight, you know what I mean? So you do have to like swing your sword like Zelda style.
Okay.
But like there's some aspect of like item usage where you're pausing and things like that. I do like that kind of like almost halfway between.
Almost like Knights of the Old Republic. Do you remember that game?
I didn't play KOTOR at all.
Okay, yeah, because that game, it's like an action RPG, but like when you see enemies, it'll be like, what do you want to do? How do you want to fight this? And it'll be like, fight it aggressively, fight it not aggressively, or whatever.
Yeah, no, more like what's the like where you like Zelda, but when you pause it, like it stops, so you can like look through your menu and like pick an item and use it and swap things out. Like Zelda, very similar to Zelda, or like even Oblivion or Skyrim or whatever. Just the idea that you're attacking, but then you can pause it and be like, oh, I got to do something. You know what I mean? Because I like the fighting itself. I don't like being turn based per se, like an actual RPG. But I do like getting a respite if like you're really getting stressed out about the game or whatever. But that would just be like the normal, like that would be just like going around in the world, right? Progression would be fighting like mini enemies and things like that and collecting things. I want it to be like adventure style, like Link's Awakening or whatever, but like a lot of like items that then you're giving to other people. Like, you know, you constantly are talking to people and they're saying something they need or something, and you're like finding those things throughout the world. I would like some amount of like multiple ways of getting through areas. Like it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be like you can do anything you want. But like I would like that like this person wants seafood and you could give them the fish or you could give them shrimp, and then you know somebody else then you have to then figure out some different way of like arranging the items accordingly. Obviously, I would never want it to be like, oh, you gave that thing away, now your save is ruined, you got to start from the beginning. But it might be like if you gave the one item to this person, you can't just easily give the other item to the other person. You end up having to do a lot, like, the extra stuff to get to, like, the item that they need. So you end up going, oh, dang, I would have been more efficient to do it this way. So, like, maybe on subsequent playthroughs, you might, like, see how you can optimize it, so you can, like, save time or whatever. I would like the boss battles in each area to, like, I don't really care about leveling up, like, grinding and stuff like that. So I would like the game part to be, you're fighting, like, mini enemies as you go. But I would like boss battles to be, like, a major game shift where you play something, like, off the cuff, like Tetris, or like Dr. Mario, or like what's that one?
Boy, there's some indie game I'm thinking of that, like, this reminds me of. Not that it's
Puzzle Quest. I liked Puzzle
game.
Quest a lot. Puzzle Quest was like an RPG turn-based fighting, but it was Bejeweled, and you basically, like, as you got your colors of jewels, that gave you, like, mana to spend. So, like, red, you collected a bunch of red jewels, and then you had red mana to spend on red spells, and like, there was different spells that were, like, a combination of things. And, like, I was obsessed with Puzzle Quest. Like, I played every iteration of Puzzle Quest, and so, like, I would love something like that, where, like, the actual fighting, I like going around and fighting, like little enemies, like, and then as your like, weapons and items get better, like, you, like, are able to mow through them a little bit faster, kind of like Diablo style. But then, like, eventually you get caught up again, and you got to get some better items as you go or whatever. But I don't like bosses in those games. Like, Diablo, like, is fun, but the bosses in Diablo is always just like,
attack until you heal, attack until you heal.
And, like, that part is just like, eh. So I would like the bosses to be, like, some unique, like switch where you're, like, playing something, like, kind of off the cuff, like...
Could it be, like, a different genre every time?
Yeah, I would like it. That's ideally, and I would like the build up to the bosses to be, like, an homage to whatever it was going to jump to. So you would be in an area that would be very geometric looking, and then the enemy would be, like, this Tetris guy. Then you'd be in an area where there was, like, all these multicolored, like, flashing things, and then that would be the Bejeweled area. I would like there's a game called Tricky Towers that I really enjoy, which is like a like a take on Tetris, but it's it's like you can place pieces, like, off by a tiny bit, and they'll fall with physics or whatever. So it's like Tetris, but, like, things fall down a little bit easier, and you're trying to build up to a certain height. But definitely like some variation on a puzzle game. Whatever, whatever that other Toy Blast or things like that. Like that idea. But each one would kind of have its theme based on, like, whatever area you're in. And then each area would be, like, I guess, like, Mega Man style. You're in an area, but it's not really, like, levels like that, because it's, like, you are going around talking to people and stuff in each area and finding items and battling enemies that all have a look to them. And then there's a boss in that area, and so... And then, then at the end, I would like something like a culmination of those things together. Like, maybe the very final boss, like, switches between them, or... I really love the idea of, like, I would really love, as the final boss, to be a progressive, you're basically building up, like, an attack to hurt them, right? And I don't know how exactly to make the order of it, but it would be something like you play a level of Tetris, and depending on something, like, if it's, like, the number of Tetrises you get, like, in a certain amount of time, like, is a number, and then that qualifies when you play this next game. You play it with this number, like, helping you play it to get a better score, and then if you get a really good whatever, then the third thing is benefited, and then whatever you can build it up to is the like amount each of your swords like hits for or something. So you're like powering up your weapon, and then you can like just go and like attack the boss and get extra hits or whatever. So something like that. That's like the general idea. I love like I mentioned Shadowrun in the beginning. Like I love just like running around and talking to people and like getting items and that kind of thing in that style. But I like the idea of just like bringing in other genres of games to like mess with the the aspect where you like just because like it's always just like you said, like with Diablo, you just like with the final bosses it's just like click 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 over and over and over, so like something to like make it a little bit interesting when you get to those points. But that's the general idea that I would have for like a game that I want to see, because I was obsessed with Puzzle Quest for a long time, and I always wanted it to like just be more, and even if it was just longer, I liked it. But like I just wanted there to be like more variations on it. I was surprised because it did well and people liked it that there wasn't like a bunch of clones of it in different aspects. It just kind of was just the one thing, and no one else really tried to do anything with it.
Now it's a game that has a definitive like end, right? Like
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You basically you're like I would say the progression is like very linear in the sense that like you're in the intro area and you do a bunch of like adventure style items and stuff till you get to the boss. It's all to like maybe unlock the boss area each time. You're just going around and talking to people and trading items around until you get to like unlock the boss or whatever.
Is the general feel like a humorous one, like Monkey Island, or?
Yeah, I definitely think that there would be a much like leaning on that for sure. It wouldn't be like, I wouldn't necessarily want it to be like everybody's just like silly or jokey all the time, but I would definitely think there would be a lot of like, like humor aspect to it. I played a lot of like Kingdom of Loathing, and there's a West of Loathing, which is out on like Steam right now, and it's like very there's a lot of like references and homage to like pop culture like mixed in with things, but it's not like it's not just like people just being silly or making dumb jokes constantly. It's just like you'll meet a character that like you realize is a reference to something, you know what I mean? Like you just little like Easter eggs throughout that you can catch or not, and it doesn't affect anything. Like just little tidbits that as you play through it over and over again, and like the items you pick up, I would like to have some sort of like I love the aspect of like when you have a game, like an adventure game where you're trading around all these items, but if you go in and you like read the description of the item, there's like all little Easter eggs throughout. Like you don't have to. None of that stuff's necessary. But if you take the time to do it, you'd be like, oh, that's funny, or that's clever, that's cute. Doesn't have to have that crazy of like a backstory mythos. It's just basically like it's pretty straightforward as far as that goes, with just like fun like pop culture Easter eggs throughout. Like not really like, oh, you read this, now you understand why this character is doing it. There's none of that. So and then I would like there to be some like aspect that like some replayability in the sense that like once you get to the end, you realize that if you optimize some of the plays of certain areas, that it would help you in some ways. I would like that there to be like some choice though, where like if you're good at a certain game, like that would benefit you, but if you're just like okay at all of them, then there's like a different type of benefit system, like depending on like what you want to do, like it would almost be like the aspect of like if you're good at sniping versus like close combat in first person shooters, like that's two different ways of playing, and then you would only be collecting sniper rifles, whereas you'd only be collecting shotguns. So, like, the idea where, like, if you're really good at one game or one style of thing, that you could be this type of character, but if you're good at general, if you're okay at all of it, then you could be this type of character. So that would, like, benefit you by picking, like a class maybe at the beginning, like the character you pick to play as would be like give you a benefit to be if you're good at that, but only if you're good, like, is the thing. Like, you should pick a general all around character normally, but if, like, in my case, like, I'm very good at Tetris, but I'm very bad at, like, that Pokemon game, puzzle game.
Puzzle
you guys
League, yeah.
Like Puzzle League, I'm terrible at Puzzle League, but I'm really good at that. But, like, if you had an aspect of Puzzle League in there, you could then be like, okay, well, I'm going to pick the Tetris characters because I want to rely more on that versus, like, when I get to the Puzzle League parts, I want it to be handicapped for me so that you're not, like, hurt by being good at one game but not others or whatever.
You know, I imagine when you were talking about the bosses that, like, so is it like it's always a puzzle for the boss, right?
Yeah, or at least that type of game.
Because what I imagine is, like, say you have, like, what's a puzzle game where stuff, let's say not Tetris, but a puzzle game where stuff is falling, right?
Right.
But instead of it being the puzzle game, it's like a shoot 'em up, right? Like almost like a Galaga kind of thing.
Okay.
Where you're like choo 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 and like that, like that's the boss kind of thing, and like the whole like leading up to it's like almost like a space theme kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like cool. Say columns, it's all about like very specific like square blocks. Mm-hmm. Like I imagine like almost like a samurai thing but it's like you're technically playing like almost like a Samurai Showdown style like fighting game, but it's columns and it's still a puzzle. I know that might be like really hard to do.
No,
or
that
like
sounds cool.
Even like if you're playing a puzzle game and as you do good stuff, the background of that
right.
Samurai Showdown shows what's going on.
Exactly,
That'd be super cool.
Like kind of like
cool.
What is it the Street Fighter puzzle?
Oh,
game.
Street Fighter puzzle. Yeah,
yeah,
just
like that's kind of fun. Like where
yeah.
there's like something you see it happening or whatever. And I think that would be fun. One other thing that I really like is that is when there's like a second player support, but not necessarily like a co-op outright. So like think more like Mario Galaxy 2, where like you can play as a second player and like do some cool stuff in the world, but you don't necessarily like. It's not like a second player playing through the game like Diablo, where there's two people playing through. And I really like the idea of having that aspect where like people can pop in and like do stuff to help affect the world in some way, or even just like I imagine it being more like I think it would be conducive on the Wii with like the pointing at the screen, but even if it was just like a cursor or something that somebody else like can like move around and click on or whatever. But the idea where like the world is, you're like moving through the world and a second player who's watching can like click on things that they see, like so you're walking past somebody's house and if you click on the chimney, like fire shoots out of it, and like so the second player can like do that while you're playing, and it's like, oh, that's fun. And there's like little Easter eggs throughout, like they click a tree and a bunch of birds fly out, or they click a this and like a groundhog pops his head out. And so like it gives the second player who's watching like something to do and something fun to like interact with, and you can like benefit from as the first player. It's like, oh, that's funny, as you're like doing your thing.
Does the second player have to have like not a big helpful kind of thing?
Like I think that my point is, I guess during parts where helping makes sense, like when you're going around collecting items and talking to people, a second player is useless, right? But when you're going into an area where you're fighting stuff, like maybe the second player can like, you know, do very minor things, like nothing OP, like hold a like Mario Galaxy 2 is pretty OP. Like the second player can like grab an enemy and like actually stun them. And, like, it makes it so that the second player is, like, pretty OP because second player can't be hurt in any way. They're just, like, hitting enemies and shooting at them and stuff. So, like, something where, like, they can help in a way, but that, like, it's not, I don't want it to be OP, But at the same time, like, it would be fun if they can help in some way. Like, they can click an enemy and it makes them stop and walk in a different direction, or they can like block certain projectiles, but they'd have to like click on each projectile, which would be like hard to do if you were like trying to click on like a bullet hell type thing. But you know, something like that where you're like, you can help in some way, but then during the parts where it's like running around collecting items, then it's just like clicking and doing fun stuff to like whatever, you know?
I mean, for what it's worth, when you were saying that, I kind of came up with an idea to, in those adventure parts, make the second player helpful. What if the second player was like a ghost or some sort of spirit, right? Ooh. And like, so you said that like a lot of these characters are like looking for items. What if certain characters like lie sometimes? And having that second player being able to like, it's not going to tell you like I'm lying, but like it could be something where it's like,
or like if the second character was like another cat, like you're a dog, and the dog can sense something. You know, like the dog can sense when somebody's being cagey.
Someone's like, give me a fish and I'll let you go, and it's like, cook, 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 cook.
Yeah. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, even if they don't tell you exactly, but you're like, hold on, you know.
Yeah. That might be cool.
That'd be kind of neat. Or
yeah, that seems fun.
Like literally finding hidden stuff. Like
I think that would be cool. Like some stuff. Like I would say that like 75% of stuff they click on during the adventure areas would literally just be like fun things, but then there'd be like 25% where they actually unlock some extra hidden items. Not necessarily. I don't know that it would ever be quest items, because I don't know that I'd want it to be like you have to play as a second player. But I kind of like the idea where like if you play as a second player, you get an even better ending than if you played it through by yourself.
Yeah.
Like kind of benefiting the people to play together, because I think ultimately playing a game through with somebody should be rewarded, because like that's great, you spent the time and you spent time with another person, and like now you get an extra ending. Like whereas like if you just sat in your basement and played through the game, you get a good ending, but you could get a better ending if you invite a friend over, you know, like that kind of thing. I think I like that. And but with the second player, I want there to be an option at the boss level that the second player can, when you reach the boss level, the second player can choose to play as the boss, and then you're playing your friend and you're battling each other, and the boss might get some benefits that like you don't get because the boss is more powerful, and so like you're actually like fighting against them, and then you know if you're like dang, this is too hard, and I think it would be forgiving in the sense that if you lose you just start right there. It's not like I gotta go all the way back to the beginning. So you know it's like kind of the thing where you like maybe play as you know your friends playing against you a few times, and if they're really much better than you and they beat you a bunch of times, then eventually you can be like, okay, let's play on the same team to get past this part, and then you can go on and continue playing. But I think it would be fun like to add a level of like we're playing together, but then you reach a point where like we're against each other like at each step, you know, and it's like oh yeah, and like some rewards based on that, you know, like if your second player chooses to fight against you, maybe you get a little bit of a better benefit because it made it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Because obviously playing AI, you'll always be not as hard as playing against another player, you know, unless the player's throwing it or whatever. Like maybe there's some way of gauging that like level of play, you know what I mean? You know, if the certain person is getting the certain amount of points, that means they're good enough, and that therefore you're playing somebody that's harder than the bad guy would have been or whatever. So there's some aspect of that, you know, some reward based on that or whatever. But yeah, I think that would be fun. Like I like the idea of like a second player helping out and being engaged to watch you play, but then also like switching it up halfway through or at points in the game where you're like, oh, now you're fighting them, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because I always loved Die Hard, the arcade game. It's like a beat 'em up style, and you go through, and there's like, and then at the very end, like the climax is you and the second player have to fight each other. Like there's this like ending you play through with the second character the entire time, like you and your friend, and then at the very end it's just like, you know, like something happens and there's like you have to fight each other, and you're like, oh gosh, and it's like all of a sudden becomes like Street Fighter for a second where you're fighting each other, and then the ending's the same. It's just whoever's living during the ending, you know, like either one character's up or the other, and it's just like man. So I like that idea a lot. But yeah, so that's my idea for a game.
General like indie style graphics, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I like SNES level graphics should be fine. I mean I love like Shovel Knight, like where it's SNES level graphics, but they're like really amped out because they they can do some really cool stuff.
Is it an isometric view? I think that's what Shadowrun is, right?
Yeah, Shadowrun is. Secret of Mana, like it's kind of not top down. That I like that like Diablo style sideways look or whatever.
Yeah.
So definitely that's the look, that isometric look. But yeah, I like that a lot. Fallout, the early Fallouts, stuff like that. But yeah, I like those a lot. And so yeah, I like that. But I don't think it needs to be better than SNES. Like, I think that's fun. I would be happy with that. Like, so I would like it to look. I mean, there's a new Wasteland game that looks really cool. So I mean, I guess it could be slightly upgraded, but I wouldn't go too crazy with it.
I feel like that idea would do better stylized anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
Yeah. Hey, I would play it. I mean, that sounds cool. The puzzle stuff would be tough, but sounds it's definitely something I would play because I like adventure games and I tolerate puzzle games,
right?
Especially if each boss had like a different genre associated with it,
right?
Definitely anyone would play that.
I think that seems fun. So
yeah, that's it. Those were our create your own.
So they should be out next year.
Yeah.
Check them out. Hit them up on Steam.
Kickstart us right now. Crowdfund us, please. And if you're listening from a indie horror company, just give me a small credit and a free copy of the game, and
there you go.
I will be perfectly fine with that.
Also, we want to see your ideas in the comments.
Yes, please.
Whatever game you are interested in, we want to hear it.
Again, even if it's something as simple as game A, but take out B, or game A and add C, that's cool with us, because there are some games so good that if you added one thing, you'd be like...
exactly.
Like, for instance, Madden... If you made it, just for instance, if you made it that Madden, you could have like 5 people on each team playing at the same time. There is a 3-player mode, but it's kind of weird on the same. But if you could have it like 5 people, or even Lord Almighty, 11 people playing at the same time, right?
That would be amazing.
Say everyone, but say the O line and the D line did their stuff automatically, but all the other players did it like themselves. That would be incredible. Like. It would just be crazy. Everyone's running their own routes.
Everybody be screaming in their microphones.
Oh, yeah. That would, if you just added that mode, even if the game itself wasn't pretty, or like just a newer football game that like had decent graphics and animation, would be super cool. So just something like that.
I think if it just had like NFL Street level graphics would be fine.
But
I don't think it has to be
11 on 11, and you can have at least 5 people going at the same time, and like... The QB calls the plays and blah, blah, blah. Like, again, Madden has a similar thing, but it's not quite right. So a little bit more would be pretty cool. So, let us know your thoughts below. Let us know why our horror game and his adventure game are going to be the best sellers on Steam. We will see. Hey, thank you again for listening. We appreciate it, and have a good one.